Welcome to Forbidden Files. In 2005, scientists at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory published a calculation that stopped people in their tracks. A man-made structure, built by human hands, had moved the Earth's rotational axis by 2 centimeters. Not an earthquake, not a volcanic eruption, a dam. And that was not even the most disturbing thing about it. This is the Three Gorges Dam, the largest hydroelectric structure ever built, 185 meters tall, nearly 2.3 kilometers wide, a reservoir stretching 600 kilometers upstream, holding 40 cubic kilometers of water, 10 trillion gallons. To fill it, China submerged 2 cities, 114 towns, and 1,680 villages, and relocated 1.4 million people. To understand why China built something so enormous and so controversial, you need to understand the river. For thousands of years, it was the economic spine of China. Its waters fed the rice paddies that fed the empire. Its currents carried silk, porcelain, and soldiers. And for most of recorded history, it killed them. In 1931, the deadliest flood in recorded human history, the Yangtze overflowed so catastrophically that an area the size of England was submerged for months. Between 145 million and 4 million people died. The range is that wide because no one could count the bodies. In 1998, a flood killed 4 million people, displaced 14 million, and caused $26 billion in damage. The Chinese government watched and made a decision. Never again. The idea had been around for decades. Mao Zedong had dreamed of it since the 1950s, even wrote a poem about a wall of stone rising across the gorges. For Mao, taming the Yangtze was not just engineering, it was proof that China could bend nature to its will. In 1992, the National People's Congress approved the dam, 1,767 in favor, 177 against, 664 abstentions. For a Chinese government vote, that number of opponents and abstentions was extraordinary. It showed the level of internal opposition from engineers, scientists, and officials who believed the project was a serious mistake. Construction began in 1994. At its peak, 40,000 workers were on site simultaneously, every day, for 12 years. 27 million cubic meters of concrete, enough to build 3 Great Pyramids, 463,000 tons of steel, enough for 63 Eiffel Towers. The original budget was $11 billion. The final cost reached somewhere between 28 and 75 billion. No one agrees on the exact number because the corruption involved made accurate accounting impossible. No one agrees on the exact number because the corruption involved made accurate accounting impossible. But the numbers that matter most are human ones. Beginning in the mid-1990s, 1.4 million residents received notices. Their homes would be submerged. The ancient city of Fengjie, inhabited for 2,000 years, celebrated in Tang Dynasty poetry, was demolished building by building and drowned. Residents watched their city being torn down around them before the water took what remained. The town of Wushan, the town of Zigui, the town of Badong, all of them gone. Archaeological sites going back 10 million years were submerged before they could be properly studied. Artifacts from dynasties that ruled China before Rome was founded, buried under 175 meters of water. The people relocated were promised compensation and new homes. What many received was inadequate money, apartment blocks in unfamiliar cities, no farmland, no river. Local officials were accused of pocketing resettlement funds. Protests were suppressed. Local officials were accused of pocketing resettlement funds. The dam was completed in 2006 and reached full generating capacity in 2012. Its 32 turbines produced 22,500 megawatts, 3 times the largest dam in the United States. In its first decade, it generated more electricity than any power station in history. It reduced China's dependence on coal by a measurable amount. Their zing, and then came the calculation that made the rest of the world pay attention. And then came the calculation that made the rest of the world pay attention. In 2005, NASA scientists Benjamin Chao and Richard Gross at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory modeled what happens when 40 cubic kilometers of water is raised 175 meters above sea level in one location. The physics is the same as a figure skater. When mass moves farther from the rotational axis, the spin slows. Pull your arms in and you spin faster. Extend them and you slow down. The Three Gorges Reservoir moved a colossal mass of water away from the equator and upward, redistributing enough of Earth's total mass to measurably change how the planet rotates. This was not speculation. It was a calculation grounded in the same physics used to track satellites and measure ocean tides. Their calculation found the dam increased the length of a day by 0.06 microseconds. It shifted Earth's rotational pole by approximately 2 centimeters and made the Earth very slightly more round in the middle and flatter at the top. To be accurate about the scale, the 2004 Sumatran earthquake changed Earth's rotation by 2.68 microseconds, 44 times more than the dam. The Moon's gravity slows Earth by 1.7 milliseconds per century, roughly 17,000 times the dam's effect. But NASA scientist Ben Chao noted, any worldly event that involves the movement of mass affects the Earth's rotation, from seasonal weather down to driving a car. The Three Gorges Dam simply moved enough mass to make the effect calculable. The dam's flood control record, the entire human justification for its cost, has been repeatedly questioned. The dam stop. In 2020, the Yangtze Basin saw its heaviest rainfall in nearly 60 years. Despite the dam, 158 people died or went missing, 3.67 million were displaced, and 54.8 million people were affected. Economic losses hit $20 billion. The government argued the dam prevented worse flooding. Critics pointed out the dam's reservoir had triggered hundreds of earthquakes in the surrounding region since filling began. Medium pause. The environmental damage has been severe. The Chinese river dolphin, the BG, was declared functionally extinct in 2006, the same year the dam was completed, a species that had lived in the Yangtze for 20 million years. The Chinese sturgeon, a species that survived 140 million years, that outlived the dinosaurs, is now critically endangered. Its ancient migration route from the ocean to its upstream spawning grounds is permanently blocked by a 185-meter wall of concrete. Sediment that once flowed downstream and fertilized the Yangtze Delta, some of the most productive farmland in China, is now trapped behind the dam. The delta is eroding, the farmland is becoming less fertile. And the reservoir itself created a slow-moving lake out of what had been a fast-flowing river, changing water temperatures, oxygen levels, and the entire ecological balance of 600 kilometers of the Yangtze. So what is the verdict on the Three Gorges Dam? More electricity than any structure in human history. Fewer floods, a stronger China. Against 1.4 million displaced, 1,680 villages submerged, 2,000 years of history underwater, species driven to extinction, a seismic zone created where none existed before. In 2012, a journalist found an elderly woman standing at the edge of the reservoir near where her hometown had been. Her family had lived there for generations. She had been relocated to an apartment 50 kilometers away. She came back to the water's edge whenever she could. "My home is down there," she said. "I just want to see it." The Three Gorges Dam shifted Earth's rotation by 2 centimeters. It shifted the lives of 1.4 million people far more. Whether those two things were worth what was gained is a question that engineers, historians, and the people who lost their homes are still arguing about today. The largest structure ever built by human hands moved the planet. Whether it moved it in the right direction depends entirely on where you were standing when the water rose. Hit subscribe. New video every week. Catch you in the next one.